The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Faster by, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Open line through till 1 today, so the floor is yours. Whatever you want to talk about, lines are open on 66 13 68. You can also text on 166 177. Email studio at manxradio.com. WhatsApp 166 177. So yes, it's true. Yesterday, the Holland America line, the new Staten Dam, the 23rd cruise ship to visit Manx shores this year, pulled in yesterday, 2,000 people on board, and our horse trams weren't working. They had Monday off, you see. Luckily, we have another boat in today, and they're well, anyway, I don't know where you take it from there. What do you do? Heritage Railways consultation finished last Sunday. Did you take part in it? The economic assessment of the railways closed on Sunday. The consultation was there to develop an understanding of those who use the railways and what's considered the most important factor in the operation. Do you remember last week Tim Glover was on the show?
If you just number crunching and looking at the spreadsheets, you can become in danger of knowing the value of the cost of everything, but not anything about the value. And I think they add tremendous value.
So there we are. We have the Mountain Railway, the Manx Electric Railway, we have the Steam Railway, we have the horse trams, or at least half of them, 50% horse tram, and various other light railways around the Isle of Man. And for many railway enthusiasts from around the world, we're an absolute mecca to have so many different types of railway, if you like, architecture and rolling stock. In one place is an absolute mecca. We're up there with lots of railway museums around the world. So we'll wait and see what happens to the future of our heritage railways on the Isle of Man. We'll listen to what they have to say. Luckily, the Bee Gees are there. I think it was a false alarm yesterday. The Bee Gees weren't missing, so they are where they are. And our various other statues, George Formby, Norman Wisdom, T. Brown as well. So what are your thoughts on the matter? Yesterday, there was also some debate yesterday about what's happening to the fact that Cushug has to be cut by the 1st. It was Patricia who said, doesn't the Cushug have to be cut by the 1st of August? Phil Gorn was right on to this. Phil was straight on. It's the Weeds (brackets Amendment, close brackets) Act of 2013. There is a Cushug Code, the Code of Best Practice for the Management of Common Ragwort on the Isle of Man, and of course Cushug divides opinion because it is somewhat poisonous to many species, but it is our national flower, so make of that what you will. It's our national flower, and it can kill some people, or some things anyway. Keep Cushug under control is the Manx SPCA really just say that if you have Cushug, or ragwort as it's known as well, it just has to be kept under control. Particularly if you've got land where the public are around. There's a kind of the annual Cushug alert is out there, common ragwort, native species to the Isle of Man, but poisonous if eaten in sufficient quantity, so it poses a significant threat to grazing livestock, cattle, free-range pigs, chickens, sheep. It's classed as an injurious weed and affects horses more than other livestock. It can prove fatal. It's no joke, but the British Horse Society believes that up to 6,500 horses die every year in the UK from ragwort poisoning, either from eating as it grows in the pastures, or once it's been cut and turned into hay, it becomes a hidden danger. Basically, it's got alkaloids that cause cirrhosis of the liver. There is no known antidote. Although it's largely unpalatable, animals will eat it if they're grazing or foraging in sparse areas. So if you have a comment to pass on ragwort, then by all means get in touch. But that's it, 1st of August. I agree with the lack of disabled provision. Just tried to book premium lounges for a person in a wheelchair on the Ben Macree and Mannin. There's no provision for people in wheelchairs in the new lounges, said Ted. That does surprise me. And also, a note in from 762, disabled bays in Regent Street are only half an hour. Is that true? The disabled bays... I have to say that's something I always watch, being a keen spotter of people who aren't allowed to park in disabled bays. But those disabled bays are often misused by what used to be the post office. And I'm guessing that was why that the disabled bays in Regent Street are just half an hour. It's because 1886 used to be the main post office. So they were there probably for people who were going in to do some post office business. Now it's not a post office. You would think they'd do something with the disabled bays there. This is all to... it was Frank who was calling about Parliament Street and just saying the disabled bays in Parliament Street are just 1 hour, and that's not really enough, and that most of the business is done down the bottom end by the old courthouse in Parliament Street, and there are no disabled bays there. A note in from Dick talking, most of our electricity is already connected to the UK grid via the interconnector, and with 20% of that coming from renewable sources, and by 2030, half of it will be net zero. So Dick says, by actually not doing a thing, we'll have hit our target within 10 years. But the thing we don't hear about is carbon capture, and as we know, half of the greenhouse gases in the world are from methane, so before spending tens of millions of pounds on, say, geothermal, let's invest in methane energy capture and produce electricity from cow muck. We're nearly 20 years behind Ireland and America in this, and so far the government hasn't even bought a bucket and spade, while half the farms in Ireland could be self-sufficient in electricity within a few years at this rate. We stink at this. Oh, I see, there's the pun. We stink at this, says Dick. Well, it's well known, isn't it? How many stomachs has a cow got? Is it 9 stomachs or 5 stomachs? Cows produce, they are very effective methane producers. And Ireland, I think, is one of the worst transgressors where this is concerned. So getting the anaerobic digesters up there, maybe that's something for the Isle of Man. Maybe it's something that we should be doing over here. It may sound ridiculous, but the Victorians used to light the streets and burn off methane from the sewers. As we've directed the sewage to one point, could a power plant not be developed there to develop the gas, says James. That's never been mentioned, has it, that Mary Veg, everything, well, the majority of our sewage goes to Mary Veg, and there must be lots of methane knocking around there. So what they do with the methane has never been said, and certainly you're quite right, James. Sewer gas used to be used to light street lights. Did anybody see the programme on wind farms last week? Apparently the motors need maintenance and the lifetime is 10 years. Have these costs been thought about by the government? Well, they're getting, did you see, they're getting a consultant in. The Manx government is... I know, it's another consultant. The Manx government's exploring the possibility of appointing an advisor to guide the Department of Infrastructure on hydrocarbons and offshore wind projects. Submissions from qualified businesses or individuals are currently being invited through the government's procurement portal. Now, do you feel you're qualified to be a consultant on hydrocarbons or wind projects? What do you think?
The main responsibilities of the role are outlined in a prior information notice posted on the government's website, but the primary aim of the advisor would be to act as a single point of contact for the Department of Infrastructure when it needs guidance on hydrocarbons, such as gas and oil, and offshore wind developments. That guidance could include a wide range of topics, including advising on industry standards and best practices, as well as the direction of travel in the UK legally and practically. The advisor would also be expected to work with financial experts to assess the economic viability of such developments and identify the potential risks associated with hydrocarbons and wind. The notice stresses that at this stage the department is only exploring options and there is no commitment that this search will progress to a competitive tender exercise. Full details can be found at gov.im/procurement, with applications being accepted until 12 p.m. on the 31st of August.
Did you get that? You haven't got long if you want to be the consultant. A consultant on hydrocarbons and offshore wind projects. All the very best to you. I think this is going to be the last MGP ever. It's Francesca on 762. The last MGP, the 100th anniversary. A total lack of effort by the DED and the DOI. Just have to look at the state of the hedge trimming on the mountain. A bare minimum. And I think it looks a mess. Also, poorly put together printed program. Doesn't have even have a list of past riders and winners and their machines on the parade lap. So much for celebrating 100 years. It just shows how much power the house developers have over the government. Which house developers? That's not going to say. Well, the MGP starts this coming Sunday. The fans are really looking forward to it. I just wonder what your thoughts are on this. And of course, it's been mooted, it's been rumoured very darkly for many years that the MGP has a limited life and the government's really just putting all its efforts into TT. I'm sure they'd absolutely refute that. But are you an MGP fan? And of course, they're looking for, was it 56 odd marshals at the moment. They say it's standard that they're short of marshals for this time of year. Let's hope it all happens. There's Cushug all over government-owned land. What are they going to do about it, says John? Well, I think really, as I was mentioning, if it's a threat to grazing animals, then something has to be done under this the Weeds 2013 Act. But which bit of government-owned land, John, is it? And if anybody's got any photos, of course, that's the whole thing about Cushug. It looks gorgeous, doesn't it? From a distance, it looks terrific. Just in Port Erin, by the way, beautiful weather. The place is packed. The ice cream shop is closed. Has the government taken it over? Is it closed or isn't it just not opened yet? Here's Bonzo now. Hi, Bonzo.
Hello there. Yes, well, I don't know how it's being all sunny in Port Erin, because here in Port St Mary it's all cloudy. But then again, we do have very much microclimates down here. I mean, I've walked ahead of the rain on many occasions.
So what's on your mind today, Bonzo?
Yes, anaerobic digestion and methane and thing.
Yeah.
You were saying nobody had mentioned that into connection with things like Miri Veg. Oh no. I seem to recall speaking to you, was it last year? Or it may have been, on solutions for actually pumping things from Laxey to Miri Veg.
Oh, yes, pump or dump.
Yes, and the idea of poo-powered pumping.
So was there a plan for an anaerobic digester in Laxey?
Well, no, and this is the thing. And look, if you're looking to power something, a lot of it's power and pipe work, or justification for not doing it. It has to be powered and pumped all the way. Well, why, if you can't, what's the problem if you can kind of do it for free by utilising the gases in the actual stuff that you're pumping? So that sort of sounds, I don't know about that. I think that's perhaps something that they should look at. And I think, obviously, anaerobic digestion in larger terms, from the energy from waste plant and things, those are things that really should be part of the renewables mix. And I think MEOA are looking at that. So I think for people to just assume that MEOA are now absolutely obsessed with wind turbines, No, I don't think so. I think they are looking at a suite of things. It's just that wind turbines are the mature technology at the moment that you can get off the shelf and everyone knows how to operate them.
I think particularly in places like, isn't it Germany's got quite a few anaerobic digesters. It's something that they suggest for their farmers, for their cattle farms.
Oh, yes. Yes, they're very much enthusiastic. I think the Danes are as well. They use it from their pork industry.
Oh, yes, a lot of bacon in Denmark.
Yes. A lot of it tastes like shrimp because they're fed on shrimp extract.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yes, apparently.
Yeah.
But getting to this, also this person, he's going to be a consultant for the government, to advise the government and be the point of contact for offshore wind and hydrocarbons. Yes, this is an old and staple trick. The consultant is, of course, somebody who you can take the credit from or give the blame to. That is why government, if you've ever wondered why government has a lot of consultants, that's why. It's sort of political deniability.
When did consultants appear? Because time was years ago, politicians used to make decisions and they were enacted by civil servants, and that was that. And then suddenly the consultancy industry came up like a big mushroom.
Well, firstly, there was let's have fewer people permanently employed. Right, fine, so we've cut headcount and we've cut costs there, but we don't actually have the people to do the deciding and looking at things. Oh, so what can we do to not have them as permanent headcount and then give them and have to pay for their pensions and all their social costs and stuff? Oh, I know. Well, employ them as freelance consultants. In the American model, which sort of grew up after the war. And so that came along. And, of course, there was the growth of management consultancy anyway, which sort of got imported from America, with people like McKinsey and such. It was a kind of idea whose time had come by the 80s when everyone was going on about delayering and organisations and getting rid of people who were going to cost lots of social costs and pensions and in the days of final salary pensions. Remember those? Yeah. And such things like that. But also it then, as people became more shouty and had more channels by which to shout, as the internet grew and then social media came along, it allowed people to avoid being held responsible for a decision. Because the decision is on the advice of the consultant. Will
you be applying for the job, Bonzo?
Oh, I don't think my views would go down terribly well. I think the advice for hydrocarbon and offshore wind is, I'm very much pro-offshore wind, as you know, and that is because mostly of the financial implications. However, I'm not, of course, very enthusiastic about hydrocarbons, which I don't think is the current fashion with Comyn and the Chief Minister in particular, I think.
Just getting back to the anaerobic digesters then, so do you think this is a goer for the Isle of Man? Do you think this is something we can put into our box of tricks, our bag of tools for a sustainable future?
Oh, I certainly think so. And as I say, I think people need to really kind of understand that when we're all talking about renewables, we're not just really obsessed with one particular thing. It's about having a whole load of things which can then, all together, make everything work. People talk about, oh yes, renewables fine, but where's the base load? I think the poo might be able to take care of some of that.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Bonzo.
Okay, then, cheers.
Good to hear from you. 26 minutes past 12. This is called anaerobic digestion. Anaerobic, well, aerobic means it's got oxygen. Anaerobic means no oxygen. So anaerobic digestion is basically where the germs, the microorganisms, break down degradable material without oxygen being there. And it basically is there to manage waste and produce fuels. Much of the fermentation industrially used to produce food and drink products uses, as well as home fermentation, uses anaerobic digestion. So if you're making home brew, that's anaerobic digestion. Basically, you can use waste products. You can use basically animal waste and process it, and out of it comes this thing called biogas, which you can use. Anaerobic digestion is used as a source of renewable energy. So this biogas, consisting of methane, carbon dioxide, and traces of other gases, can be used as fuel. So basically, you can ferment the doings, and in combined heat, and you can heat and you can power gas engines with this stuff. It's upgraded to natural gas quality, biomethane it's called, and the nutrient-rich stuff that's left over can be used as fertilizer. So it's a virtuous circle. All you have to do is produce, or you provide the kind of industrial facilities to ferment it, and there it is. It's called anaerobic digestion, perhaps something we should look at on the Isle of Man. Oh, Sean's on. Hi, Sean.
Hiya. I spoke about anaerobic digesters about 3 or 4 years ago.
I remember you coming on.
Absolutely. I'm no expert, that's for sure, but I do know there's a lot of muck produced on the island. There's all the food waste from the shops and the prison and the schools could be fed into an anaerobic digester. And we were away in the train a few weeks ago, went up to Scotland, and I saw all these anaerobic digesters on various farms. And you can't even tell what they are. They're just like a green dome, just like a silo, really. They're not not high above the ground, certainly not as high as a wind farm.
Do they smell?
Not at all. No, because the smell is the methane, you see, and they're capturing the methane to power the generators.
Right.
And there's a lot of farms. I was talking to a dealer at the show at the weekend, and there's so many farms in England producing crops to feed these anaerobic digesters. And, you know, you can put maize. You could even, now this is just, I've only just thought of this, you could even harvest the cushags on all these fields, because there's a lot less farming getting done now. And if you do look around, there is a lot of cushags about. You could harvest them and feed them into the anaerobic digester, because it all breaks down. You can put silage in it, grass silage, maize silage, your farmyard manures. All those things can feed an anaerobic digester, and you're getting gas off them. And it would actually, the digestate, as you said before, which comes out of it, is a fantastic fertilizer, which would therefore reduce our reliance on imported fertilizer.
Well, it sounds like a no-brainer, Sean.
Well, doesn't it just? And wouldn't you think the government, DEFRA, in their infinite wisdom, would pick up on this? We've got Knockalo out there. You could have one out in Knockalo as a test one, because that's what Knockalo used to be used for. It was an experimental farm. You could build one, you know, a small-scale one, to check it works all right. You could even get a consultant in to help you, couldn't you? So
that's what we need. Another consultant.
But, you know, it's like you say, it's a no-brainer, and I cannot see why the government are not picked up on this. There was a meeting a few weeks ago. Some farmers from the north had a meeting with an anaerobic digester company. I didn't go, but I probably should have done. But I'm quite interested in this, because it's just gas. It's methane gas powering the generator. Dead simple. Okay, I couldn't go and build one this afternoon in the shed, but you know, people who are far smarter than me could build one over here, couldn't they? There's plenty of engineering firms.
Well, you would have thought so. All right, good.
You would have thought so.
Thanks for that, Sean.
It's too simple.
Good to hear.
It's just too simple.
Right. Thanks for calling today. We appreciate that. We like simple answers, and that would be great. Feeding the cushags in the real Manx energy into an anaerobic digester. And a note in from Margaret in Ramsey, Andy, ragwort is a deadly weed for farm animals, and farmers used to be fined for allowing it to grow in the fields. I didn't know that. Fined. Does it still happen? The real rewilding of hedgerows, by the way, is allowing ragwort ragwort to proliferate and spread its seeds everywhere. Well, that does happen, doesn't it? Once this time of year, the seeds go absolutely everywhere. So rewilding needs to be controlled. It's not the sort of panacea that everybody thinks it is. Thank you, Margaret. So ragwort, our national flower, but of course it's very dangerous. When Michael Portillo was on the Isle of Man filming the steam train and the MER for the BBC, why wasn't more made of it by the tourist board, whatever it's called at the moment, says Texter 577. It still goes everywhere. That film still goes everywhere. Sadly, and again, this is the MGP comment. Fran on 762 again. Fran. Due to the DED's hatred of the Manx Motorcycle Club. So we'll see. Do you think this is going to be the last MGP? I don't want to be the prophet of doom, but it's been mentioned many, many times that the government doesn't like. Now, we don't know that for a fact, but what's going to happen? This is the 100th MGP. Can we burn seaweed in an anaerobic... I don't think you can burn anything in an anaerobic digestion. It has to be kind of mulched up and bioed to death, if you like, Alex. But we could certainly use the seaweed in there. Here's a message. I'm disgusted with the government regarding the nursing home in Ramsey. Why didn't they build a new one a few years ago so that people in the home could have moved in a more humane way instead of the people getting upset? These people are old and will be getting upset because the government needs to get a grip, says Kay. This is a story about Cummel Moor in Ramsey that is coming to the end of its life. It's going to be knocked down. The problem is they haven't built the next one yet. Manx Care originally said it was going to be knocked down without one being built, and everybody got very upset, very justifiably, because that would mean that people may have been dispersed across the Isle of Man. Not an ideal situation by any stretch of the imaginations. Well, DHSC said that's not going to happen. The two Ramsey MHKs have got involved. Coincidentally, one of them, Laurie Hooper, is the minister at the DHSC, and the other one is the Treasury Minister, Dr. Allinson. We wait and see. I completed the line survey for the railway, says Carol. It was very basic. And it seems that not much thought went into it. That said, there was a box where you could add your own comments. Let's hope it's not just a paper exercise, so to speak. And regarding the cruise ships, the horses do get and deserve a day off. However, it would seem that improved communication and forward thinking is needed. I'm sure that their day off could have easily been amended to avoid it happening in the future when the ships are scheduled to visit. Such a shame that this happened and the visitors have missed out on this wonderful, unique piece of our heritage. And subsequently, obviously, we lost revenue for this. When the ships are in, and there were quite a few, I saw some of the rather notably dressed American visitors taking lots of photos of the wedding cake of the Tynwell building, and again something that we see time and time again, and it just becomes something that's part of the furniture. But to many people it's very, very noticeable. I did have one message in as well, and it was from, and talking of yesterday, remember when we got some duff information that the Bee Gees may have wandered off and become the Knights on Broadway. The Bee Gees are still there. However, if you go to what used to be called, it was the Jane Crookall, was it the Jane Crookall maternity, where they were born, all three Bee Gees were born there, they took the sign off. It's going to be in this new village that's up on Kensington Road, but where the Jane Crookall maternity home used to be, there was a sign that said the Jane Crookall maternity, and Bee Gees fans used to come from around the world and take photos of it. A few years ago, they took the sign down, so it doesn't say anything. Just another photo opportunity that got taken away, and I wonder why they took the sign down. Obviously, it wasn't the Jane Crookall for many, many years. That went to the hospital. But there was a sign that said the Jane Crookall, and that was where the Bee Gees were born. We have a Bee Gees statue, but the place where they were born no longer has the sign on it. Well, Ian, I'm not a fan of the TT or the MGP, even though I live on the course. My problem, before anybody comments, it would be nice to at least to receive a road closure notice, as we usually get, considering it starts on Sunday. It's the usual no thought for anybody who hasn't got two wheels imprinted on their heads. So no road closure notice for properties on the course, is that right? And more messages about ragwort. Yes, apparently farmers did used to get fined. I genuinely didn't know that. Do you ever remember a farmer being fined for growing ragwort? Cushugs are deadly poison, and not just to animals. The most effective removal is to pull them up by hand, but you must wear gloves, as if you use your bare hands, there's a possibility that the poison will enter your system. Really? The symptoms aren't pleasant and can, because the residue persists in your body, make you very ill. And more on the Cushugs. What's exactly wrong with the home in Ramsey? It looks very nice. Certainly the building doesn't look old. Apparently, Mary, 754... the issues are that there are some shared toilet facilities. Not all the rooms are en suite, and apparently the disability access isn't all that it should be under current regulations. And many people say, look, we love it. We absolutely love Cumnall Moor. I've got relatives in there, and these some messages that I've had. So why are they getting rid of it? Well, because they've come to the conclusion it's at the end of its life and they want to build a new one. But surely you would think they'd build the new one before the old one is... I know. If government's looking to future energy security, wind turbines and solar panels are only medium-term solutions, 10 years or so. The longer-term solution surely has to be nuclear power, whether we take our nuclear power from the UK, well, we do, or those small nuclear reactors that Rolls-Royce are making, some of them absolutely designed for use on an island. Well, can you imagine being the MHK who proposes a nuclear power station on the Isle of Man? How much chance do you think you'd have of getting elected if you were proposing a nuclear power station on the Isle of Man? Anaerobic digesters at Knockalo makes a lot of sense, says John, so obviously it won't happen. Oh, such cynicism in one so young. And I wouldn't want to eat anything that's been grown using ragwort fertilizer. It's a cumulative toxin that gives you liver failure, says Crystal. Lots of messages in today on text and email and WhatsApp, and we'll get to the phone lines in a moment.
For your new bathroom, head to Pacesetter, Harris Terrace, Douglas or Spring Valley. In Pacesetter's fully fitted showroom, you'll find the latest bathroom products and designs, from new contemporary styles to traditional Victorian tiles, wall and ceiling panels, accessories and much more. With many ranges exclusive to Pacesetters, plus professional design advice from the experts, visit Pacesetter, Harris Terrace, Douglas or Spring Valley.
You can get the best of everything, where the price is twice as nice.
I've just called the Guernsey Bank, Skipton International, about our savings.
And did you get a helpful robot?
No. At Skipton International, you speak to a very helpful, real person.
That's refreshing these days.
Well, that's why I chose them, for the perfect combination of personal customer service and some of the best savings rates. All by calling 01481 730 730 or visit skiptoninternational.com.
Skipton International is licensed to take deposits by the Guernsey Financial Services Commission and is a participant in the Guernsey Banking Deposit Compensation Scheme. Details at dcs.gg. Terms and conditions apply.
Discover a fabulous range of watches, gifts and jewellery at Ramsey Art Gallery, with top brand watches from Bulova, Citizen Eco Drive and Storm to Acurus, Seconda and Timex. Plus, all watch purchases come with free lifetime watch bracelet adjustment service. There's stunning gold and silver jewellery, gifts for all occasions, and of course a fabulous gallery of limited edition prints and original artworks. Find all this and more at Ramsey Art Gallery, Jewellers and Engravers, opposite Ramsey RNLI shop.
Join Manx Radio's touring team this weekend at the Port Arun Beach Festival. We'll be on the beachfront with our frame game, where you could win one of two £50 vouchers. vouchers to spend at Sorrel. So come along and see us and join in all the activities, including bouncy castles, aqua bikes, market stalls and Scruff's Dog Show. The fun starts from 10 at the Port Erin Beach Festival this Saturday with Manx Radio's touring team.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
The government wants more people to move here, then surely get Manx Care stop making excuses for everything. Doctors, receptionists leaving their jobs in droves because of abuse from patients who can't get appointments. No locum doctors, so when GPs take holiday, there's no cover, no appointments in some GPs till September. I know some people go to the doctors when they don't need to, but pharmacists are doing all they can to take up the slack. And Manx Care make excuses, they say. Well, they'd say what they're doing is mitigating it and telling you what exactly is happening. And Manx Care are going to be on in the next month or so. Teresa Cope, the boss from Manx Care, will be here. But they've said, I mean, everybody's said it, Laurie Hooper's said it as the minister, there's a shortage of medical professionals. We just can't get them. And of course, we've got many pharmacists who are disappearing from the Isle of Man. So problems with getting prescriptions, problems in getting appointments. It's a kind of systemic problem, and it's a kind of Western world problem. How do you get out of it? How do we solve it? Well, if you know the answer to that, I suggest you become a consultant and offer your services. We want to increase tourism. No horse trams running, albeit half the rails missing as visitors land ashore. Talk of reducing the steam train as well, says Texter 557, and the trams. And of course, the showcase entrance, which is Douglas, is run down, full of derelict brownfield sites, says John on 557. Julian's on now. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. I've just gone along the prom, and the Spirit of Adventure, the Saga cruise, looking quite magnificent in the bay there today.
Yes, I can see it from my window. She looks lovely.
Yeah, they're certainly got plenty of room for people, I think. As good as it is talking about renewables, I think we have to be a little bit realistic with methane. The rule of thumb is, and I know it's lunchtime, so I'll call it waste, a kilo of waste will keep a low-energy light bulb going for 2 days. So it wouldn't even get a normal halogen light going at all, probably for about a week and a half's production at a kilo. So you have to think about how many kilos of waste are you going to need to displace the amount of gas that we use, which is equivalent, I think, to I can't remember how many billion cubic feet is, but it's a lot of gas that we use every year. I don't think it's very realistic to start using methane on the island for anything meaningful.
But I mean, I've noted these. I've just been checking that lots of farms in Germany are. I think then they're basically using it for themselves. But I think the point is they're taking the bad stuff out of the atmosphere and using it for something useful. So it's kind of killing two birds with one stone.
It's fine, but, a typical anaerobic digester for industrial costs at least £1 million, which I think is why they never used it down at Mary Veg, because it was too expensive for the amount of energy that it would produce. As much as it would be a good idea, you've got to be realistic about these things. If you're just able to power up a low-energy light bulb for 2 days off a kilo, that's not much energy coming off it, unfortunately, as much as I'd love to say that it's a realistic option.
Yeah. But it's interesting that nobody's come up with the actual figures. Nobody's saying, how many, kilos of stuff we would produce per day and what could be used with it. And the fact is, if you can throw other stuff in it, like food waste, then again, it's a virtuous circle. You're using food waste, because we throw away tons of food. So we could use food waste, you could use the mess that comes out of the farms, and do at least something with it.
Yeah, it's about as realistic as achieving net zero when 2/3 of humanity are going the other way, putting up coal power stations and gas power stations.
Yeah, okay. What else on your mind, Julian?
Somebody I think mentioned to you yesterday about renewables and wind turbines producing a quarter of the energy. Renewables is a lot of other things as well, and they're trying very hard to do biomass generators, which I think I mentioned to you some time ago, produce 20 times more pollution. Some of it is 56 times more sulfur dioxide than the latest gas turbines. But the trouble is, of course, you've got to send massive, great ships, diesel ships, from Chesapeake Bay, like Drax does in the UK, because Drax is a large part of the calculation for how much energy the UK is using from renewables. But when you've got a diesel ship using 15,000 litres an hour of marine diesel to bring wood chips, which have had to be cut down by diesel machines from America across to the Atlantic to the UK, to then be loaded into a burner at Drax to produce 56 times more pollution than what a gas turbine would have done, it doesn't make a lot of sense when you actually sit back and think about what they're actually doing.
Well, you lose yourself in the equation of, where the saving is, in which part of the equation will be the saving. And this is where, and again, it's something we'll talk later on this week with John Curtis and Andrew Langan-Newton, in that in the middle of the whole net zero thing, there is, there's business, there's politics, and there's almost, if you like, philosophy. There's a modern philosophy of going for anything that's green, and this whole concept of greenwashing, of dressing something up as though it is good for the environment, when actually, if you unpick it, it's not.
Well, I mean, the other big thing in the calculation is money and its transfer, because when you think a typical power station is about £300 million to power 1 million people. So the turbines in the UK, there's 11,500 so far that cost 250 billion with a B, and as soon as the gas prices went up, they were no use at all. So we've deployed a huge amount of wind turbines, and the evidence right in front of your face when you read your gas bill is it hasn't made any difference at all. Well, so your electricity bill, should I say.
What do you think is going to happen with the MGP, Julian?
Well, we'll see. I haven't actually seen what...
You must have heard these dark rumours about this being the last MGP.
Well, they'll probably try and make it an electric MGP or something, won't they? But then again, people don't really... the people that I speak to in TT don't really like the silent electric bikes that can only manage one lap, because like electric cars, you only get a sixth of the range, which is why they can't do the 6 laps that you get in the senior and stuff.
I mean, what is going to be the future for things like Formula One and motorsport in general if you get to electric vehicles?
To be quite frank, I think the public needs to kick back on this, because if my opinion is that there's nothing broke. All that's going broke is us, because there's massive amounts of money being transferred to the elites through the method of all this green stuff. How can you put £250 billion worth of wind turbines up in the UK, and the instant that you had the energy coming in from Russia, the prices went up, even though we get all our gas from Norway? There's something weird going on, even if you just sit back and think about it. The 2 pipelines come straight from the seabed in Norway, straight to England, one in Scotland, one in northeast England. Why did the prices go up?
That's capitalism, I think.
Well, it sounds more like crony capitalism, because, if we had proper capitalism, there wouldn't be all these regulations, and someone else could drill and get their own gas to you and say, here, you can have it for 5p a unit.
Do you think the Chief Minister is pro-Kroger? Do you think he wants Kroger to drill the gas on the Isle of Man, off the Isle of Man?
Hard to say. Let's see how fast that licence goes through. From my perspective, it is madness not to do it, because, as I said to you yesterday, how much over £1 billion is it going to cost to shackle us to the UK for power on a cable? Compared to, if it's over £1 billion, that's 1,000 million. We could put a new power station up for around 150 million. Well, you've got 10 times less cost, and you've got all your self-security.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Julian.
Thanks, Andy. Cheers.
10 to 1 on Manx Radio. I spoke to a meter reader 3 weeks ago. He said the smart meters aren't compulsory. You can opt out of smart meters. Thank you. Apparently, the ice cream shop is closed in Port Aaron for a deep clean, so it'll be spotless when it opens. Here's one that says, if they stopped spraying, then our solar panels would work effectively and we wouldn't have needs for wind turbines, says Will. Stop spraying what? Oh, it's the chemical planes. Is that what it is? we're back onto chemtrails again. The more we hear that this is the last MGP, the more it will stay in people's minds. Will this happen? I wonder. And a note in that just says you could still be fined for not cutting your cushugs and thistles by July 31st, says Norman. Is that true? You can be fined for not cutting thistles? We've only just had ours taken down outside Broadcasting House. There were loads of them. Following David's comment, says Nick, we get a habitation check every year at a cost of £150. We do this because we're happy that we aren't going to blow ourselves to smithereens. This is regarding habitation checks on mobile homes. So we do it so we're not going to blow ourselves to smithereens from a gas leak or suffocate because of carbon monoxide. We don't get an MOT because we don't take the general public on board. Says Nick. That's regarding this thing about large vehicles and motorhomes parking in the future. Surely we could put all the seaweed we have on the Isle of Man into the digesters instead of just pushing it back out to sea. We've missed the boat as far as offshore wind farms are concerned, as the costs for offshore wind farms have rocketed, and we're very late to the party, says this WhatsApper. Thank you for that. And so again, surely we should put all our seaweed in there. They've just put a wooden plate over the writing of the Jane Crookall. Apparently, the Jane Crookall writing is there behind. So I wonder why why didn't they want the sign there just to say it was the Jane Crookall maternity home, the birthplace of three of the biggest pop stars in the world ever. Thanet Earth in Kent have got a brilliant system. They take vegetable waste from various sources, including supermarkets. It goes into an anaerobic digester to produce methane gas and fertilizer. The gas is burned to produce heat, to produce electricity and carbon dioxide. Waste heat and carbon dioxide is then fed into the greenhouses to promote crop growth. So that's the way they do it in Kent. Thanet Earth. Get the pun? Thanet, it's in... Anyway, another one that says cinnabar moths grazing on ragwort, one of the few creatures that are immune to the bitter poison, and apparently birds won't eat the cinnabar moth. The cinnabar caterpillar, which obviously turns into the cinnabar moth. I'm learning something new every day. Also, thank you for the person who sent me the anaerobic digester cost calculator, and we'll find out more whether or not anaerobic digester could possibly work on the Isle of Man. Many reasons why. I mean, they work, obviously. It just depends whether we can scale them up to mean anything relatively worthwhile on the Isle of Man. As long as the rich and powerful are in charge, white goods, cars and tyres will need replacing every few years to maximise profits, says David H. Today's philosophical point on Mannin Line.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Just in case you forgot, this coming Thursday, John Curtis from netzeromatrix.com and Andrew Langan-Newton will be on. Andrew is the head of the Manx Green Party on the Isle of Man, so we'll have lots of views. And you, of course, call in, have a chat, agree, disagree, whatever you want to do. Let's just get to the bottom of where you think we are going with our net zero targets. What are we going to do? Yes, I think farmers used to be fined for not getting rid of thistle before they seeded, says Sharon. I'm sure the thistle outside Broadcasting House was seeding, but don't tell anybody. Just a thought. Those poor horses pulling a tramload of Americans, says Brian. That's a bit of a wide generalisation. Has anybody ever seen grass and weeds growing on Douglas Beach at the side of the walkway before? Lack of maintenance by Douglas City Council looks disgusting and uncared for. Thank you, Dot. Yes, I spotted that on Queen's Prom, actually, where the sea doesn't reach. There are weeds growing on Douglas Beach. If it's cheaper, then the Manx government doesn't want it, and they can't waste an absurd amount of taxpayers' money. Some civil servants seems to think that money grows on trees, says 807. anaerobic digesters, yes, I think we should have them at Knockalo. It's a good idea, and hopefully we will do it. I just want to bring one thing to your attention, and it was a long thing that I got from, it was, let me see, just an email address. Oh, it's a text 511. These parking restrictions will affect thousands of vehicles on the Isle of Man. These are the parking restrictions for large vehicles, may include work vans and certainly some mobile homes. What are workmen supposed to do with their vans? Buy a car and drive to and from their van that they've left on an unrestricted road. What happens when you need to call an emergency plumber outside of the legal parking hours? And also, your caller was correct about drop curbs. The police don't come to do anything. We were blocked when getting into our drive regularly, even on it. We were even blocked in on the drive once, and police said there was nothing that they could do every time. We have been blocked on by people parking by drop curbs. Also, I drive a low van. It's our family vehicle, and there are windows in the sides, and we've got seats, but it is over 1.87 metres. It's about 2 metres. So I think not much again. Can't leave it on the roads in these hours. I think it's crazy. Thank you, Caitlin, who just said, I got really bothered yesterday when he said the Bee Gees are gone, so I had to rush down onto Douglas Promenade and check that the boys were still there. Well, they're still there. Paul said, is it true sheep and goats are unaffected by eating ragwort? Don't know, sure, Paul, but we'll find out on 931. That's it from Mannin Line today. Back tomorrow, Wednesday, for another open line. Thanks to Howie Kane on the phones today.
WINT.